everybody. This is Ryan McClanahan with historythroughcards.com. I hope you're all doing very well today. So, Ernest Shackleton's in the news again. I'm shocked, but for good reason. They actually found his ship on February 5th, 2022. It was actually John Shears who found it, and he had actually been looking for it for a while. And how he found it is actually really amazing because he was studying Captain Frank Worsley's last recorded location of the ship, and when he found it, it was 4 miles off of course, which kind of makes sense. But the ship is in about 10,000 feet of water or so, and it sank upright, and it's kind of like a basically a time capsule, if you will, because the the rigging is still there, the paint is still there, everything about the ship is remarkably intact, and from what they're saying is that they've never really seen any other ship from the era that is in such great condition other than ships that have been lost in the Great Lakes, which kind of makes sense. I'm not sure why the Great Lakes have ships that are like such great detail or in awesome condition. But this is an amazing find. And I wanted to kind of tell you guys today about Shackleton's adventure as a Arctic explorer. And the thing is, I never actually thought that he had a card. In fact, he's got two cards that I know of during his time as a polar explorer. And this happens to be from the 1910 T118 uh, World's Greatest Explorers. It's actually a pretty small set of about 25 explorers, and this is actually during the what they call the heroic age of Arctic exploration, and that lasted, I think, between like 1872 and about 1920 or so. So it fits right in the time this card does. This isn't actually a very expensive card. It's very affordable. It can be a little bit difficult or tricky to find, and it does have a few other really notable Arctic explorers. So I did actually pick up two others. The first one is Matthew Henson, and that's what this looks like. It's kind of neat, to tell you the truth. And then the other one is Robert Peary. And so I actually wasn't looking for these cards when I found them. I was actually at a show, I think back in 2017 or so, and let me just put those away real quick. And so I was flipping through a couple of pages that a dealer had at a show, um, and it was the T218 set with the, I think they're Series of Champions. Anyway, I was looking for boxers of all things, and these cards were in those sheets, and I was really surprised. I didn't really want to tell the dealer exactly, like, you know, because I once you tell a dealer, like, or you show some kind of emotion, sometimes they pick up on it and they'll raise the price of whatever it is. So I tried to hide uh, a poker face, and so most of the time that doesn't really work out. um, so I got them for like $10 each or so, which is really very affordable. But it's the history behind these cards which is really important to me. And tell you the truth, um, I don't think it could get more historical, in fact, during this era than having a card of Ernest Shackleton to add to my collection. So I was very happy with that. Um, Ernest Shackleton is a very interesting character. He, uh, let me see, I wrote down a lot of notes here, so I'm just going to kind of read from my notes too. And there's a couple of articles too that I want to kind of get to. Some of the articles that I'm going to read are kind of long, so if you guys can hang in there with me, like, I'd really kind of appreciate that. However, uh, Ernest Shackleton was he was born in February 15th, 1874 in Kilkea Island, and he was a lieutenant major in the British Navy from 1901 to 1907, and one of the first expeditions I believe he was on was called the Nimrod expedition. And on all honesty, as a young man, I've been on a few Nimrod expeditions. I think we all have. Although I did not find anything in the North Pole, nor did I go there because I hate the cold. But such as it is, he actually didn't make it to the South Pole, but he reached it was the closest that anyone had ever come to the South Pole, which was 97 miles away. What also I thought was interesting was the South Pole itself and Antarctica. And really, Antarctica is it's a landmass, unlike the North Pole, which some people may not know. It's at one point I didn't know that either. So um, it also has a lot of bravery attached to it as well. And I'm going to get into that because the one thing that Shackleton never reached the South Pole or the North Pole or anything, but it was it's really the bravery behind the man that is probably the most impressive in his accomplishments. Um, a lot of his accomplishments in business really did not pan out well at all. He was actually considered a very poor businessman, and he left his widow in severe debt by the time he passed away. And when he did pass away, he was en route to South George Island. On his way, he wanted to go back to the South Pole or Antarctica, and he never made it. Arctic exploration is a lot like going to the moon, especially in the time when Shackleton was headed there. Before I get into the press, what they have to say during his expedition, I want to kind of lay out the map that they were all going by. Imagine a wireless SOS being sounded from the Antarctic pivot of the world, from the South Pole itself. Hurry, we are dying. And then suppose this answer flashed back across leagues of polar snow from the quarters of Weddell Sea, from which the Shackleton expedition will start for its march across the Antarctic continent. Cheer up, motor sledge number 2 is on the way to your rescue. Not probable, of course, but possible, for Sir Ernest Shackleton will in his forthcoming expedition depart from formula and tradition in attacking the secrets of the utmost south. Always in the past polar explorers have placed their main reliance upon leg muscle and endurance, and a capacity to eat dog when the pemmican was gone, and when the dog was gone to get on somehow without eating anything. If nothing happens, that if killed Scott and once before cost Shackleton the pole. Two striking innovations will be introduced in this sortie through Antarctica. Shackleton will travel in motor sledges driven by air propellers. He will seek to remain constantly in wireless communication with the expedition's base. Shackleton's expedition, upon which he will sail from London in August, is greater in its scope than any previous polar project. It somewhat lacks the sporting interest of the repeated dashes to the North and South Poles. It is true, Peary pegged down the flag for the United States as the finale to a series of daring rushes toward the top of the world. Amundsen for the Norwegians travelled fast and light, beat Captain Scott's British expedition for the Southern honours in that tragic competition that is too well remembered. In each instance, the pole finders sought only to get to the pole and then back again. Shackleton hopes to get to the southern pole and past it and march the full length of the Antarctic continent. This is not less than 1,800 miles. Then add certain novelties in polar work which will ensure positive luxury to the party unless that polar if intervenes. Shackleton's men will carry with them a hot cupboard for drying soaked clothing, a steam cooked plant on which to make hoosh, tents that can be put up in 2.5 minutes in any sort of wind, a new sort of food which is not only higher in heat making value than any yet tried, but will do away with one source of frostbite. Why are you going to try to do it? I asked Shackleton in the rooms of the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition. He looked at me impatiently. No doubt the question seemed a foolish one to him. Quote, possibilities of discovery, scientific interest, trace course of the Victoria Range, he snapped. Then the impatience went out of his eyes, and he smiled in a thoroughly human, boyish, sporting sort of way that made one understand why he is such a wonderful leader of men. For a moment he tried to explain to me just what attraction lies in league upon league of ice and continuous blizzards and discomfort which at any second may merge with tragedy. The impression he left upon me was later voiced by one of his men to whom I put the same question. Quote, because it is the one big thing left in the world for a man like Shackleton to do. Unquote. Trying a new route. Previous expeditions have made their try for the Pole from a base upon the Ross Sea. Shackleton has selected the hitherto unknown route from the Weddell Sea for his own. On both the Ross and the Weddell Seas, bold mountains project into the water. There is a scientific theory that these may be the sea ends of a mountain chain which crosses Antarctica. If this is true, it will be held established that this is the southernmost end of the Andes range of South America, perfect except for the sea break. Glaciologists and scientific connoisseurs in mountains will accompany the expedition in the hope that this theory may be finally proved. Shackleton impresses you as a fighting man. Upon first acquaintance he is abrupt, cold, almost savagely concise, and businesslike. He has just returned from a stay in Norway where he tested the motor sledges when I saw him. That day he had lunch with Rudyard Kipling. That night he would leave for Paris on some business connected with the expedition. Every hour up to the moment of sailing had been spoken for. He drives at his job as a Wall Street banker does during a bear raid. Later it developed that when he had time to spare, interruptions came at the rate of one a minute. He can be charming companion, almost sunny in his geniality. He is a heavy-framed, big-bodied, thick-jawed man with a beard that shows blue-black after shaving. His hand is thick with muscle, not fat. Shackleton will have two ships. One is the Endurance, a new ship built expressly for polar work at a cost of $70,000. The other is the old but stanch Aurora, formerly owned by Dr. Mawson, the explorer. The Endurance will set sail from England in August for Buenos Aires and in October will set sail for the Shackleton base on Weddell Sea. Given good luck, Shackleton hopes to reach his base of operations in October and be on the march by November. The Aurora is now refitting in Tasmania and will be joined in October by the scientific party that will make its base on the Ross Sea. The scientific members of the expedition have not yet been selected, Shackleton attaching more importance to the personnel of his ice parties. Eliminating the seamen, the two polar parties will number 60 men. Of these, 20 will be engaged in actual ice work. The remainder will be scientists and quote unquote spares. While the four land parties are sledging, these will endeavor to chart the shores of the Antarctic continent. Imagine a line drawn straight across Antarctica through the South Pole from Weddell Sea to Ross Sea. Shackleton will lead a party of 6 along the line from sea to sea, always allowing for that Arctic if. From Ross Sea, the party of 6 will come to meet him, establishing depots of food and fuel at points previously determined by the leader. Their location will be fixed by triangulation. So even sometimes with the best of technology, things happen that are completely out of your control. And this is what happened with the Endurance. It actually got caught packed in ice, and the men did everything they could to save the ship. But on November 21st, 1915, Shackleton ordered them off, and they headed for basically an ice, I guess like an iceberg or something like that. Um, However, uh, they were there for about 2 months until that started to break up, and then they had to leave, and the closest place that they could get to was Elephant Island. The thing with Elephant Island is that it's really not a place that uh, you nobody actually wanted to be at, or there was no reason to be there. So shipping lanes were far away, and it's very inhospitable. And so Shackleton knew this, and he left his men and took 5 of them with him to go to South Georgia Island, where he knew that there was a small campsite there, and he could get new supplies and try to go back to his men to rescue them. And that's the thing, is that he was kind of like free and clear, and it tells you a lot about Shackleton as a person, that he would actually go back and save his sailors, which is what he did. Uh, Actually, when he reached South Georgia Island, he had um, about 32 miles to go, and the technology at the time that he was using is really antiquated from what we would know today. But the thing is that you have to start somewhere, um, and kind of like make improvements upon what others have done in the past, and that's why we today have all this technology for polar exploration. But even the best technology sometimes can't save you, and so it does take ingenuity and intelligence sometimes, and just sheer will of strength. And every single one of these guys had that to survive, and it's really just an astounding thing what Shackleton did, and there are a lot of documentaries on this. Unfortunately, I didn't write that down any of the names of them, but you guys can find that out for yourself, and just check it out. The other thing I wanted to tell you too about was the whiskey part of Shackleton's story, because that too is really kind of an amazing thing. Um, so back in 2000, I'm sorry, 1907, uh, he was um, he was given a bunch of bottles, I guess, or 5 crates of whiskey and brandy, and it was specific for a certain trip that he was on. The whiskey itself was a rare old Highland malt with an unusual strength of 47.3%, which is a kind of a higher proof, I guess. I don't really drink, so I don't really know what that would be, what that would be, but I guess it was to withstand the freezing temperatures. Now, apparently, somebody forgot about this whiskey, because around 2006, the Antarctic Heritage Trust was working on conserving a wooden shack that Shackleton constructed, um, and underneath the floorboards, they found these crates of whiskey. And from there, they were able to, I guess, construct what the whiskey was. It was still good, I guess. Um, and I don't know if I would drink whiskey that's that old. Um, but they were able to pull them out of the snow in 2010, and there was like 12 unbroken bottles inside these crates, from which they had a chemist from White and Mackey uh, really kind of attempt to recreate the blend that Shackleton used, and it was originally limited in quantities and sold for about $250. This is something that I would actually try myself, just because of who it is, Shackleton. So um, they actually decided to add the collection to their permanent collection, I guess, if that makes sense. Um, and you can now get this stuff for about $40. But it's really kind of interesting that there's like several different parts of this story. You have the expedition itself, you have Shackleton, the explorer, and then you have his whiskey. And from that, you have an entirely new fan base, if you will, or a new generation of people who are just kind of really interested in Shackleton's story. And like me, because I went and had the opportunity to find these cards, that made me interested in Shackleton's story all over again. Really, I kind of knew a little bit about it, but not much. And that's really kind of what card collecting can do for the collector, is get them interested in, and it may not be sports. It could be something like this, or something entirely different, say like music or art or printing or anything really. And that's really kind of the great thing about collecting cards, sports cards or non-sports cards, is that you never know in which direction they can lead you in. You know, whether or not it's all sorts of like different aspects, and it could be something maybe a little associated with it, but not really, like economics or science or art or whatever the case may be. So, with that, guys, I want to thank you very much for stopping by and checking this out. And if you have anything to add in the comment section, I'd love to hear about it. And if you're ever really kind of interested in collecting non-sports cards as well, let me know about that too. Anything you guys have to say is really something that I kind of look forward to. So, and then and then next time, I'll catch you guys later. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Have a good one. Bye.